Okay, so let's jump right into it. I've got a short presentation I'm going to show that just kind of to get your juices flowing, maybe get you some ideas and just kind of see what I've been seeing. And everything I'm going to show you has just come in the last, really the last like 3 or 4 weeks. There's just a lot of like ferment, a lot of neat things happening. So I mentioned the origin of this. There's a kind of a there was a saying that went around a couple of years ago on social media. You can just do things, and I feel like that's the real excitement. So there's lots of like sort of engineering types who are dreaming up these incredible products they can build, but as I said at the beginning, I don't care if you're going to try to make money with your product. In fact, I prefer you don't. I just want you to scratch your own itch and use it in your own way. And then maybe if someday you want to turn it into a business, you can, but you don't have to. And Claude Code makes it a lot easier to do that. Um, so I'm just going to give you some examples, because this is how a lot of software originates, which is, I wonder what I wonder if I can, I wonder, wouldn't it be cool if, and this is just a question some guy had asked it, what's the largest number to be explicitly referred to in a Shakespeare play? And this guy found the answer. And all he did was he got some text formatted versions of all of Shakespeare's plays and had, in this case, he had Codex go through it and he found the number. It's 2 million, you know. So that was just kind of a neat, sort of fun little example. There's 2 slides for this. So I don't know if any of you know John Gans. He's a historian and writer. He has a popular Substack. He about a month ago said, I've been Claude Code pilled, and he started, he's a historian of kind of sort of extremist political movements, Marxism, fascism, and he was interested in like creating a score, like what's the risk of the United States falling into authoritarianism. So he just started playing around with it, and the result is this democracy index dashboard he created. It fetches a combination of statistics and just news sources and has a heuristic and generates this neat little dashboard. Um, Another one is Jasmine Sun. I linked to her, I think, in the description, and I'm going to link to it again in a minute. Um, she created iMessage Wrapped. She's like, I just want to see what all of my messages are like in that I text about, and so it generated all these statistics, and then she had it break down into like what types of slang is she using. So she has sort of a real time, or not real time, but a historical view of the kind of words she uses in her iMessage. This is one I literally just came across today. History Simulator. This is by a guy named Benjamin. What is it? Is it Benjamin Breen? Well, I've got his name here in a minute, but he's a historian and writer, and he created this simulator where you can just type in, create a world, and you can say, this one I said, I'm a soldier in Alexander the Great's army, and it conjures up this whole like gaming role playing game that you can do where you just navigate through it. Um, Megan Gafford, who has hosted salons here and is also a writer, she wrote a really nice piece yesterday about how she has, instead of having, an AI editor, she has about a half dozen AI editors, and they have different personas that she can apply and say, I don't know, what would Tom Wolfe think about this essay? What would his criticisms be? Um, and she uses it that way. When she writes something, she'll have it, and it just gives her a lens to kind of think about the ideas she's getting. I'm not much of a writer myself. I do a little bit of writing, and I found AI is extremely useful just for when I'm struggling for a metaphor or I'm not sure how to like wrap, I've got this idea, but it's half formed and I feel like I'm not saying it well. I'll ask AI and it'll, I almost never just sort of copy verbatim from the AI, but it does kind of help me get clarity. So, that's some of the ways, for the non-programmer, non-techie, non-B2B hustle grinder startup guy to start using it. And this was from Jasmine Sun's essay, which I thought really captured it. For her, she was new to Claude Code, and she said it felt like she was cooking with the ingredients from someone's fridge, the blankness of a page, uh, traveling in a country where you don't speak the language. So part of the challenge, if you're new to this, is just not sort of shutting down and saying, well, I don't know how to code, I can't do this. Because as I'll show you, you can ask Claude. Whenever you run into a roadblock, you can just ask it and it'll give you ideas. So there's some references here. I'm going to copy and paste these into the chat so that I can so everyone can browse these. Let me just pull up my. And while I'm doing that, maybe does anyone have any ideas they want to share? Some ideas of what they want to do? Don't be shy. You can just do things.
Um, I, I'm a doctor in work medicine, and I've always wanted to kind of look at work from a psychological perspective, like
Hmm.
the intensity of work or cognitive overload or cognitive underload when people get bored, mental fatigue, and AI slop, and how to actually measure that in a useful way.
Okay, that's a great idea. Anyone else? Yes.
Hi, I'm Mo. So I do a lot of interviews with executive teams and like teams in general in organizations. And what I'm always curious about is like what are the patterns that are coming up in conversations, and how can I use like coding to understand some of those things that I can miss when I'm doing a manual analysis. So that's something that's on my mind.
Okay, so
Mm.
sort of extracting commonalities in executive interviews and maybe using that to generate a summary or some kind of a chart, things like that.
Yeah, go a
Mm.
little bit more deeper than like in something that I can do personally. So I think I'm just looking for something more like a catalyst to my like what I
Sure.
can bring to the table. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. Especially with teams, it could be interesting to look for like the team dynamic, and you can figure out
Hmm.
who's speaking up, who's maybe using more dominant words or something like that, and you might be able
Mm.
to pick out who are the quiet voices that you maybe want to hear more from or something like that.
exactly. Yeah,
It'd be interesting.
Yeah, and that just as an aside, I think what we're going to see is an explosion of like there's lots of sort of organizational frameworks out there. I mean, there are a dime a dozen, for every kind of process under the sun. And there's consulting firms that specialize in them, or maybe there's a book with an accompanying, set of templates you can use. I think I've already seen people start to do this for EOS, which is a business management system. I think you're going to see a lot of people just kind of put up a repository where you can download it and apply this lens to your organization, and it's more interactive. Um, any other ideas? Going once? Going twice? Well, why don't we take one of these and just start building it and see what happens? Does anyone have a preference? So we've got sort of analyze executive interviews. We've got analyze, the stressors of daily life and how that shows up in sort of a psychological context. Okay.
Yeah.
Got one vote
That's
for cognitive overload.
Yeah, I'm curious, Mary, as you're thinking about this problem, like what kind of data you would want to use um to be able to analyze this.
I don't know. That's the problem. Like you've got somebody sitting at their desk, beavering away all day, doing very important work and getting performance managed and all of those things, and they have to fulfill their KPIs. But how do we know what their mental demands are? How do we know what their engagement is? Um, is doing multiple things actually increasing their cognitive demand and therefore increasing their stress and burnout? And so it's all kind of, to me, all of those things are kind of vague and wishy-washy, and I'm not particularly sure that there is some kind of a numerical computational way of translating all of this. And that's where I struggle. I think it would
Okay,
be
that's
easy if
actually
it was a repetitive strain injury and you count the number of repetitions of lifting something, but the psychosocial stuff is more difficult.
okay. Well, that's actually, I think that's a fun problem because this is the kind of thing that Claude can help you get clarity on, right? So, a couple of things, and then we'll jump right into it. So, one is you can, if you just go to claude.com download, you can download the desktop app. You know, many of you are probably used to just using Claude in the browser, and it's fine for chats and stuff, but for coding, you really want the desktop app. So, I'm going to show that to you right now, which is right here. Um, and just a quick navigation. The default is the chat, you know, which looks, which looks, you know, kind of like the web app. But and oh, by the way, this does cost, it's $20 a month for Claude. Now there is I believe Google has a free product. I believe it's free, is anti-gravity, which is also quite good. So if you don't want to spend the $20, you can try using anti-gravity. But Claude is where a lot of the energy is right now, and you could just try it for a month and drop it. But the basic program is $20 a month. So let's. I'm just going to create a new folder for this. We'll just call it. Actually, let me move this to here. Cognitive overload, and start with this. Okay, so um, I'm going to add some instructions here. So I'm an experienced coder, so you know I'm going to tell it to pretend that I'm not, so that uh, you know you can get a sense of what it's like for um, you know, a new user, because you can always tell it. You can say, "Hey, I'm not good. I'm not very good at coding. So explain things to me in a simple way. Explain like I'm five." Okay. So it's asking me here, do I want to trust this workspace? So basically what it's doing here is I've got a folder on my local computer, and it's going to be reading and writing files to that. That's normally a risky thing to do, to let some program come in and just go willy-nilly on your computer. But so it's asking me, hey, make sure you're okay with this. Now it's going to stay just in this folder. It's not going to be ranging all over my computer, although there are some jailbreak ways to get around that. But for our purposes, you know, you want to just take a folder, a throwaway folder, create it, and get going. So let's go ahead and trust the workspace. And it's getting going. So I want to create an app for measuring cognitive overload in the workplace. And I'm just going to say, I'm not clear on exactly how I want to do that, or what I should even measure.
DJ, one of
Mhm.
our attendees, Ellen, suggested that Claude look up human factors papers. So maybe
Okay.
we should add that as a suggestion, so that it kind of gets some guidance on where to look.
Look up
Human factors.
papers about human factors.
Yes.
Okay. Now, um, so it's going to ask me, it's asking me, are you allowing me to search? And I'll say yes. And it's doing a couple different web searches here. So it's going to ask you every step of the way. And as a programmer, one of the biggest challenges is I'm used to like diving into a problem and just writing code. Whereas here, I'm mostly just kind of waiting and watching. And that's the biggest drawback, is it's hard to get into flow states with this. And it's a real challenge in the industry. No one has really solved this yet. Some people say, well, I just work on 3 or 4 projects at once, and I just don't believe them. I don't think that's possible.
DJ, can we potentially make this window a little bit bigger,
Sure.
so that
Is
people
it
can
is it just
see?
because the text is small, or
Yeah, I think that would help. Yeah.
does that
Um,
help? what I have
Or
now.
just make the window more full screen maybe as well. But
This is as big as it gets.
this is perfect, I think.
Okay. So it's looking up all kinds of stuff. Um, it's kind of summarizing some of its findings. What makes sense for a workplace app? So one is a short survey, and it mentions NASA. Behavioral tracking, and wearable integration. Very accurate, requires hardware. I don't think we have time or budget to create hardware today. So these are basically our choices. Survey style or tracking. There is privacy concerns, right? Do you want to force everyone to opt into the ever-growing surveillance state and be watched? I would lean toward, for this first go round, just doing it a survey. It says, my suggestion for getting started. So for who is the user? How do they want to report? What do you do with the data? And how often? So why don't we just think through these questions? So who did you have in mind as the user for this?
So let's do office workers, and they fill out a form, and it's for their manager to improve their workplace, and they do it yearly.
Okay. Form once a year. The deliverable is information for the managers to improve the workplace. Okay. And then, oh, I didn't mean to do that. All right. Well, we'll just start with number one.
I feel like we got a couple of the other questions in there as well, right? Number 4, how often?
That's true. Yes, you're right.
Oh, we actually answered all 4 questions in them.
We did.
And one go.
All right. So my initial thinking, a short web form, 10 to 15 questions based on NASA TLX. Does anyone know what that is? I don't.
No, we should probably ask, right?
Yeah, sure. In the meantime, if people have questions, you can pipe them into the chat.
I can ask a question. So for sometimes I think about toggling the different models. When do you use Opus? When do you use Sonnet? You use these other ones.
Oh, that's a great question. So there's different models, and I'll be honest, I hardly ever pay attention to any of this. I'll see people sort of say, well, I get better deep thinking from this one, or this one has a better budget. I almost always just use the default. I'll see some people say that, I mean, so there's the $20 a month, and then there's a plan that's $100, and there's one that's $200. The 200 is like max. You can just go crazy on it. I've never used it enough to justify that. I guess if I had a full-time position doing this, working multiple projects, I would. But at most, what'll sometimes happen is I'll do like a ton of grinding for a few hours, and then it'll give me a message, timeout. It resets, usually a few hours from now, which is nice because I can go for a walk and have lunch.
Yeah, it's probably good for you, right? Good for your cognitive overload.
So
Yeah,
the more
exactly.
expensive ones are just volume of the things that you do with them rather than any increased privacy or
Yeah,
wonderfulness or
yeah,
anything like that.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
just, kind of all you can eat versus a la carte.
Mm, hmm
Although I
Uh,
guess the free version has things that are not
Yeah.
available, right? So
Yeah.
Claude Code isn't
right,
available
Yeah.
on the free version,
right.
Yeah.
It's not available on the free version. Okay. So NASA invented it. Um, Makes sense. You got a bunch of astronauts and pilots. You want to make sure that they can stay on top of things. So useful that now workplaces, hospitals, researchers use it everywhere. It's free, thousands of studies, takes 5 minutes, gives you a score you can compare over time. For office workers, you'd probably skip physical demand, okay, and add a few specific questions. Sure, let's look at, so it's asking me, do you want to look at some of the questions? Sure. I'm just gonna say sure, because it knows what I'm talking about. asking me wing it. So here it's doing a search again, and I'm going to say always allow. So
Mhm.
that way I don't have to do this every single time.
What's wibbling?
Hmm.
What's wibbling?
Oh, it just does this it's the equivalent of the spinner on the
All
phone.
right, okay.
It keeps coming
to,
up.
to
Now,
entertain you while it's
Ah,
doing
I
all
see.
this searching.
Mm.
now what's interesting, this is kind of the thinking it's doing. I want to go back to that for a second if I can. Where was I? Well, shoot.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
And it'll get more technical in a minute, but it really does kind of approximate thinking. This is exactly how I would be thinking. I would be like, oh, so I need to find these sale questions. Let me do a search. Oh, geez, I need something that's readable. PDF would be good. Um, if it's PDF, can I convert it to text? So it's actually pretty interesting to kind of dive into these. So here's what we found: the 6 scales. Mental demand, low versus high. For office workers, definitely physical demand. Um, uh, so it's suggesting we don't do this, but
Mm.
in your case, Mary, would you want to keep physical in there?
No, because that'll be easy.
Okay. Temporal demand, so how much time pressure, performance, good or poor. Do you feel like you're doing a good job? Yeah, that seems like something you want to ask. Effort, how hard is it? Um, sure, high effort, low performance means overload. Frustration for office workers, absolutely keep. How it's scored is a slider. So it says skip these, and it gives you some suggestions to add. Meeting overload, tech software frustration, interruption frequency. Do we want to add some ideas here?
How about adding interruption frequency?
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, because all of these are really good questions about your control over the work and how you feel about it. These are fabulous questions.
Okay, so it said that's not part of the original NASA, but here's a suggested
Yep.
um, question, and it's asking you ready to start building. I'm just going to say yes. Let's start. Ah,
So is this what you would do in your everyday work, DJ?
a
Something
lot of it.
along these lines?
A lot of it. Yeah. So it's giving, these are technical recommendations. I'm going to go with next in TypeScript. This is a very common one. A lot of times I already know um, the tech solutions I'm going to use, and maybe I have a specific framework I'll use. So I'll say, look, we're going to build this in React. We're going to use PostgreSQL. I don't want to use Next. I want to use React Router, things like that. Um, do you want the responses to be anonymous or tied to a department?
Tied to a department.
Okay. Um,
DJ, would you recommend, when the attendees are building something themselves, say like we're not familiar with like what is React, what is,
mhm.
Next, whatever. Would you just say like take whatever it says is the recommended option and just kind of go
Yeah,
with
as a
that?
general rule. Yeah, I mean, I do that. Sometimes with the stuff I do, sometimes it'll sort of suggest an approach that I just know is like, don't do that approach. Because I've seen enough apps that I know that, oh, this may work for the moment, but it's going to cause problems later. So let's just avoid it altogether. So here it's telling me the technology we're going to use. Next.js, this is a very popular, a lot of websites use this. SQLite, this is a SQL database. Tailwind, um, ShadCN, Recharts for dashboard charts. For all of these, um, you could just ask it. Tell me more. Explain this part. I don't understand this thing. Copy it in. Ask it. It's very patient. It doesn't get frustrated with you. So whenever you're like not sure, just ask. You know. So now it's asking me to approve Claude's plan and start coding. So let me just go ahead and do this. And what's neat here is it creates a little to-do list. And it's running. So bash means it's running a command on your computer. That's bash stands for born again shell. That's the terminal on your computer. I'll just show you real quick.
We need to give it some approvals.
Oh yeah, you're right. I do. Sure. I'll always allow for project. So this happens a lot. There'll be an error in red. And again, as I mentioned, this is kind of what it's like to be a coder. When you're especially starting a new project, you're like, oh crap, I got to install this library. Oh shoot, why isn't this working? And so it really does approximate what it's like for an actual coder. I remember several years ago, probably about 10 years ago, I said, we'll never have AI because I was working on setting up, I think I was working on Ruby on Rails, and I was installing it and just getting all these stupid errors. I'd have to Google the error and find out how to fix it. And, you really had to be committed to it to do it. And I remember thinking, man, AI is never going to be able to solve this problem because this is, it can't even get itself started.
Uh-oh.
What's that?
So
All right.
what's going into the folder right now is all of this stuff that I've got no idea what this is. Is that
Yes.
going into the folder as well?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just the start of it. There's a file called
Mm.
package.json. It's installed. So these are all different libraries that it's installing.
Wow.
Again, this is, what I would be doing manually anyway. So it's just kind of,
And so do you think that someone who's got absolutely no idea about code, can't even spell the word code, but wants to do something like this, you don't need any kind of opinions on how it's done or any computing background whatsoever. Is there anything that would be useful to learn about this? If it's not code
that's a
itself, is
good
there
question.
anything
I would
else that
say,
you should know?
well, as a general rule, knowing more is always good, right? That said, someone said Claude is pretentious. Yeah, it is a little bit. It's not as sycophantic though as OpenAI. Although there is a pretty funny, like I'll be working with it and it'll suggest something that's wrong or it won't fix the bug I told it to fix. And I'll say, no, no, this isn't right. You need to have it do X, Y, Z. And it'll respond with, you're absolutely right. I forgot to do that. So someone made a bug that just says, you're absolutely right. Anyway, so no, I think you can get very far without knowing code. Now, what's interesting, the example I showed of John Gans is a sort of authoritarian risk profile. He announced it on his Substack, and a bunch of people like me, who follow him said, hey, I'd love to help out with this. And so now he's got a Discord set up, he's got a GitHub. There's about a dozen of us. I shouldn't say us. I've hardly contributed at all. I've just mostly been watching. But if you build the right thing, people will just jump in and raise their hand and I'm going to help out. So, what he got, the first version of it was, it's decent. It looks pretty good. But, he finds problems with it and others have suggestions. So it became a very collaborative, almost a community process for him.
Yeah.
To do that.
I think, something I'll add as well. Marcus mentions in the chat you'll eventually accidentally learn some code as you go. But, for me, thinking back to when I was building my app, like I think that like going and trying to learn something ahead of time when you don't even know what is going to be necessary for the project, there's so many things you could learn. And like DJ says, obviously knowing more is better, but you may just find yourself wasting time learning something that you're not ultimately going to need. But
Yes.
what you could do is as you're kind of going through the project, Claude will say, I'm going to use this and this and this tool, then you can kind of almost take a little like time out and say, okay, can you explain to me briefly like what those tools are and what they do? I know with my app, when I was building it, I was using GPT, not Claude Code at the time. And I basically said, like, rather than explain it to me like I'm five, I said, I want you to act as if you're my coach and you're teaching me how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the time, I was taking, I was taking the code that it was suggesting and just using it, but I was saying like, please explain to me like what you did here so that if I wanted to go and do it myself, I could. And that was really helpful for my own kind of because I wanted to learn in the process as well. It was sort of I want to build and learn simultaneously effort. But it's really also just down to what your priority is, right? Are you more interested in just getting the thing built, or are you interested in kind of learning alongside?
Yes, and actually, Ellen just mentioned this book, Dreaming in Code. I don't think I actually read that. I've looked at it. My very first company, we back in Chicago, uh, a grad student at, I can't remember if he was at Loyola or maybe Northwestern University of Chicago, came in and shadowed us for, he asked for, and I let him come in and basically just watch us work for a few weeks to for his research, which was about these kinds of things. How do teams perform? What are the bottlenecks? I should go try to find that. He did create a paper out of it. Um, I mean, it's night and day. Back then, coding was truly a discipline. You really had to know a lot to be able to even get the simplest thing to run on your computer. Okay, let's see where we're at. So you can see it's talking through the things it's doing. It's creating the config files. Let me set up the layout and schema. Uh, See, like here's an example. It tried to do this. Prisma is a very common, what's called a database abstraction layer, or ORM, Object Relational Manager, and it's getting an error. And this is exactly the kind of thing I would do. Okay, let me try this. Oh shoot, what's this error? And like I said, I'd copy it, Google it, find it, and it's going through the same process I go through as a programmer. So it's really striking at times to watch it. So now it's starting to create files. I opened briefly, this is a code editor, Z, which you can see the files starting to fill up here. And so if you want to, you can just pop in and take a look and see what the different things are. I've built these kinds of applications a lot, so I can pretty intuitively jump around and sort of know what things are. But if you want to start from first principles and say, hey, I want to learn how to use React with Next.js, it'll teach you. And there's gobs of tutorials out there too. So let's go back to here. There is I've tried, I mentioned some people try to have multiple sessions going. So what I've done is this is a terminal app I use. I'll just start Claude right here. So Claude, the original version, was just in the terminal. What's neat is you can have multiple instances of Claude running at the same time. And so what I could do is, let's see, where is it? I could have, 3 or 4 terminals here running, all of them running Claude.
Is that like having different search engine pages open and doing different things?
Yes.
Yep.
Now I did these all in the same folder, but typically what I would do is I would change directory. I'd move to, I have uh, sort of different projects going. Like today, I was sort of toggling. I'm working on a mobile app, but I also I have a website that's like my resume and portfolio, and I just sort of added, I was like, oh shoot, I forgot, I need to add this project to it. So I just opened the terminal, went into that one, said, I need to add the project. Here's what I need, create it.
Can you
And
show us
sort of,
again how you did that? How did you open out the three different windows? Sorry, I went too
oh, well,
quickly.
I'm using a special terminal application called Wave
Oh,
uh,
okay.
that allows you to do that. Um, if I just use the Mac terminal app, um, what it doesn't have that capability, but it does have tabs. So you can have, different tabs going.
But it can't remember your conversations between tabs, right? Or between those different
No,
windows.
no,
So
it does not.
every time you start interacting with it, it's a new context for it.
Yes. Now, what you can do, and I'll show at the end, is you can have it sort of summarize the session and save it to a file called claude.md that so that you're not always uh, you're not always starting from scratch. It's basically a summary. Like, here's the tech stack, here's what the application does, things like that, so that when you launch, it'll just automatically read that and use that.
Thank you.
So someone said, wondering if remains private or proprietary. As far as I know, yes. The what they do, they use lots of things, but it's pretty well understood that they've used GitHub and a website called Stack Overflow. GitHub has literally millions of repositories with source code on it, and Stack Overflow has millions of questions people have asked about different projects, like why won't this component render? How come my server keeps crashing when I submit, a big file to it? And so it's sucked up all that and used that to build its base model. And then they've done tons of like fine tuning after that.
Right. I believe that that sometimes DJ it says that you shouldn't put, special sort of API keys or
Yes,
secret access keys into the chat itself. Like, it's
yes.
okay if it's in your file, but you should go and paste it into the file yourself rather than putting it in the chat. I think
Yes,
so. So I think that
that's a
might
best
be,
practice that I have violated many times.
but I think that's probably like the better way to think of it, as kind of your files themselves will be private, but whatever you type into this chat box maybe might be used for like Claude's further research.
Yes,
And
what gets uh it sort of depends on what you're doing. Like, if you're going to build an app that a lot of people use, then yes, absolutely, you want to be best practice. If you're just building something locally to play around with, it doesn't really matter that much. Um, when you are deploying stuff, yes. Um, when you deploy something to a server, there's something called secrets, which is like, an API key that might access a database somewhere, or it might access Google Maps if you want to embed that in your website. And those are secrets that you should not reveal, and you should not put them anywhere where someone can either read it locally, um, or if, God forbid, they hack into the server, get it there. So, and there's well understood practices that make that easy. So let's just. Mhm.
quickly before we click into this, Adam asks if there are meaningful differences between different terminal apps or code editors like VS Code and Z.
Meaningful to the average user, not a lot. I like Zed. I just started using Zed recently. It's very fast. Because it's written in just a faster programming language. VS Code is really, really, really popular, so you can't go wrong with using that. Um, if you're not used to coding, it can be a little overwhelming at first. Uh, In that case, I would just use VS Code because that's the most common one. When you run into a problem, you can just do a query. Um, but they're all pretty similar. What they all have is, there's a file tree over here, there's the editor here. You can have multiple files open um, and tab between them. Um, they have search capabilities. So I use this a lot. I'll be looking for a specific, I find a typo, right, in my web app. And so I'll just go do a search to find that typo. Um, we haven't really talked about version control, but um, there's where is it? Here it is, GitHub. You can have a repository and do version control. A lot of that stuff's all built into the editor. It used to be you had to jump between tools, but they're all pretty integrated this thing. Yeah, someone's saying if you're not paying, you're the product. Yes, that's absolutely true. Although Claude is trying to be the good guys in all this. They just ran this ad for the Super Bowl about how, they won't have ads, and an ad about how they won't have ads. So it's given me these different URLs to open. So let's just open this first one here and see what happens.
DJ, this is maybe like a dumb question, but I remember the first time I got a URL that started with localhost, I was like, is this on the internet?
Yes, that's a very good question. So
it's opening in my internet browser. Is this an actual website?
Yeah, localhost is your local computer. It always maps to your local computer. And so as a developer, that's what I'm always working with as localhost. There's some exceptions where sometimes you want to be able to, it'll still be running on my computer, but I want to allow third-party services to connect to it. There's these proxy tunnels you can use. Vast majority of the time, you never have to worry about that. And if you do, you can just ask it, right? Again, it's
right.
Claude. It'll tell you everything you need to do.
Right. So, but the point is, I can't send this URL to my sister
right.
and say, open this up on your computer.
No, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So,
cool.
So here we go. So there's a dashboard, an admin. It looks like I don't have here we go. So this just shows the departments. I can add a new department. So let's add one called
sanitation.
What is it?
Sanitation.
Sanitation. There we go.
I've got a stupid question as well. If it doesn't take, this is amazing. I'm really blown away. And it doesn't take that long to make an app. What do people do all day when they say, I've been working on this app?
Well, so there's a lot. So this is a pretty simple app.
Yeah.
This is the kind of thing I could have built without Claude. It would take me more than a day. It would take me a few days to build this. But like the example, that history one I showed earlier, that's a very involved app. He's got historical data he's loading in. It's got a lot of UI elements where if you click this, you need it to move a certain way. You need to shift context. So that's when you start build, I imagine what he did is he just said, I want to build a history simulator. How do I do that? And it went through this process that we just went through. And then one of the wonderful things about coding is it's kind of like writing. You're not sure what you're going to get until you just start. And as it evolves, you start getting new ideas, new ways of thinking about it. Like, oh, this layout isn't what I had in mind. Now that I've kind of seen it a little bit, it's a canvas, and you can just play around and say, oh, this is, I hate this color scheme, or this menu doesn't make any sense. Let's change it or move it. So it's a very iterative process. So when they say they're working all day on their app, it's a lot of that. It's like a painter who's sketching ideas out over time. So this is the dashboard. Why don't we go look at, where is it? Let's go look at the survey itself. This is the thing I don't like about Next. It's always very slow to build and run. Once it's built, it's fine, but it's just annoying when you're developing. It's got all this crud that for every potential use case that's built in, but it just slows down. Although this is even longer than normal.
I
Can
think
you
it's hosted on the same page actually. I think it's just the like home page is the survey.
There we go. Let's see.
What were you asking, Mary?
so can you test it, like sort of real world test it in a
Yes,
way?
we'll do that in just a minute. Let's see if we can just get this
Mm.
darn thing to load though. So, um,
Maybe while we're waiting for it to load, we can answer Ellen's question from the chat,
mhm.
which is, kind of it's what sort of knowledge could you get from interacting with Claude that you wouldn't get from just typing cognitive overload into
Mm.
scholar.google.com and reading through the results for a few hours. And, I think this example is interesting here because we've created a tool that you could use to collect real world data from your workspace, right? It's not just going to be the survey is not just going to produce the published results. It's going to allow us to like actually do something in the world, in a way that a paper doesn't necessarily give us that kind of like action element.
Mhm. Mhm.
Would be kind of my view of that. I mean, one thing you could say is like why don't we just build this in Google Forms? um, you know, which I think, in this particular case, this is a simple app that we're building, but there's not always an existing tool out there that you can use. So sometimes you do want to actually develop your own tool, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so this is interesting. It's timing out for some reason. I've asked it what's going on. So it's running some tests to see. But yeah, to Ellen's point, um, I mentioned earlier, even this is based on NASA's survey, right? There's gobs and gobs and gobs of frameworks out there like that are just waiting, and many of them have probably been built into an app. Some company went out and raised $1 million and built it, and now they're like, we can do these cognitive assessments, which is great. I mean, I wouldn't say that SAS is dead. I mean, it offers a lot of other benefits, but a lot of times you just need something for the department. You just need a little app. We want to do a little bit more than a Google form, but we don't want to spend $500 a month per user to do all this other stuff. So why don't we just build something here? It'll take us a day or two to build it, and then we can iterate on it. We can add a new feature, we can reformat the data, we can do more analysis.
So possibly another rude question, but I really
Mhm.
don't know the answer. So when people ask for $1 million to work on an app, what is that money for?
It's usually to hire programmers. Um, it's I mean, that's why a lot of programmers are freaking out about Claude. It's like, wait a minute, I used to be able to charge $150, $200 an hour to come in and write code, and now, you know, there's sort of a joke, the Silicon Valley, idea guy, the guy who's like, idea will feed the mayonnaise to the tuna fish, and speed run creating tuna salad, and they never actually do anything. They just create PowerPoints and show up and glad hand you at networking events. And now, so let's see.
Oh, the server died in the background. How sad.
Yeah, it's not good.
Here we go.
All right, so let's just go ahead and do this. So I'm going to mention the how much thinking did your work require? Lots. Actually, not very much. I'm using Claude Code now. How rushed did you feel? A little rushed because I wanted to get this done within the time we have. I don't know. Performance. How successful am I accomplishing my goals? I'll ask you guys that. All right, so we'll go up to 90. How hard? Not very much at all. This was easy. Frustration. A little annoyed with it not loading, but that's part of the job. Wasn't interrupted. I mean, I was able to have a conversations with all you guys while doing this. So I technically I was interrupted, but I didn't feel very interrupted. So I'm just going to submit here.
And Mo has very, very politely raised his hand to avoid interrupting you. So
Oh, okay.
now we can listen to his question.
Yeah, no, I was just curious at the design of the questions. They were like compound questions, like they were two questions like combined into one. And I was wondering like how would a user like what question does a user look at when they're responding to the response was I just the design of the question was very interesting how it chose those questions. I don't know
Yeah,
if they like yeah.
we'd probably have to ask NASA why they went for that structure in the first place, right?
And you can iterate on that. You can change things around as much as you like, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fabulous.
Oh, stats are getting better. Um, I know that there was some questions in the chat about Git and GitHub,
Mhm.
which I feel like might be, a nice way to move this for like a sort of second iteration.
Sure.
Because I'm sure, like Mary, of the tools that you probably are going to find yourself learning about, that one's probably going to come up. Um,
Mhm.
so I feel like
Yes,
that
GitHub
could
is
be a
a
good one to get a little bit of exposure to.
yeah, GitHub is a very so let me separate them out. There's a program called Git, which is a version control program. Version control is like if you can imagine a Word document with revisions, you can track revisions. Git allows you to do that with source code. Extremely useful, extremely useful. Sometimes I'll make a change and deploy it and it blows up. I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? I didn't set the database. I didn't, and so I can just roll back to the previous version, you know. So it's useful for that. GitHub is a company that popped up about 15 years ago that allowed you to host all your stuff there so that I always have a backup in case my computer crashes. And also they have profiles. And so, this is me, these are the different activities I've been up to. Let me see, here's my repositories. I've got 50 repositories on here. I mentioned just today I was working on my resume. That's what this is. Um, just different things. And you can make these um, public or private. So you see where it says private here or public. Public means anyone can come look at it. Private just means only you can use it. I believe they give you, actually, it's been so long since I had to think about it. Public, private, you get several private free, but I think once you hit a certain threshold, you have to pay for it. But it's very liberal. I mean, I almost never have to pay for anything with GitHub. It's amazing. Um,
Yeah,
as an
maybe we
aside,
can. Uh, sorry, just got finish what you were going to say.
well, I was just going to say, as an aside, I did a coding test. This is back in November, and this is for a position I was applying for. And the guy told me, he said, if you want to use AI, you can. So I said, okay, great. And so, he sat with me. It was just like this. And what they really want to see is how you reason, how you think about coding problems. And the problem he gave me was pretty hard. It involved like going to this website and taking this image and saving it locally and then parsing through the image and finding a word. It was, it was pretty detailed. And, and he had never used Claude before. So I said, well, here, I'm going to show you Claude. And so I did this for him, built the whole thing in about 25 minutes. And he said, I've never seen anyone finish this coding test before. So, like, it was just like this superpower.
It's really cool. I was gonna say, Shoni asks, how hard would it be to actually deploy this little survey as a website that we could then, potentially all click on and
Yes,
and fill out. And maybe that, pairs well with the GitHub
yes. Let's
step.
do it right now. So I'm
Let's
just
do
going
it.
to ask you, how can I put this on the web so other people can use it?
And this is the good thing, isn't it? Because you're not monetizing it, you're just sharing your idea.
Yep. So it gives you some options. So Vercel is a very popular hosting platform. It recommends that. So let's just go ahead and use that. Should we switch to a free cloud database? So what it's asking here, let's just use Terso, which is a, so what it's at. So these cloud platforms like Vercel, they have a static representation of your site. So it's telling me here. So
Is there anywhere where you can go and just look at all the ideas and search for a particular topic of ideas?
when you say by ideas, do you
No,
mean?
like, people that post their idea.
Oh my God, yeah, yeah. I don't
Where
know of an
where are
exact.
those?
I don't know of an exact site. Um, but I mean, on Reddit, there's new product ideas subreddit. There's side project subreddit. If you just Google, you know, people who are discussing software ideas. I mean, there's just scads and scads of websites. I mean, the whole startup world exploded, starting in the late 2000s, and it's just forever and ever going.
You could even just use the chat bot itself and ask,
Yes,
like, be
yeah.
like, hey, I'm like thinking about this. Let's think of like a bunch of different ideas of, well, you can just use it for brainstorming as well. And particularly if you wanted to, you could say like, do a web search to see if there's
Mhm.
anywhere that people have published their own ideas.
So it's telling me here's what I need to do. I need to create some accounts. So Vercel, I already have a Vercel account. It's going to tell me Terso. I think I already have a Terso account too, but let me see. Let me just try logging in. I'll use my. Yeah, there we go. Great. And now it's giving. So this is probably the hardest thing you'll have to do is to run these commands in the terminal. So I'm just going to copy this, and this is where I need to go to a terminal. I'm just going to paste it in, hit return. Let's see what happens.
Right. So DJ, I have a question. It seems like there's certain things that Claude can do for you and
Mm-hmm.
other things that it can't do for you, and now you have to do yourself. What's the difference between those things? Like,
Um, so the reason it can't do this is because these functions require that I literally log into a website, which means I have to use a username and password or some other
mm,
kind of auth mechanism. There's been a lot of work on making that possible too. The one that's got a lot of attention was Claude. I haven't actually used it. It's a pretty risky thing to use. You basically are just saying, YOLO, you have access to my computer, you have access to all my resources, go. Um, and I haven't really needed it. But there's some people who say it's crazy. I have it answering all my emails and scheduling my meetings and all this other stuff. And so that is already the funny thing is Claude was bought by OpenAI. They hired the guy who created it, and ChatGPT has been behind the eight ball on this stuff, so they're trying to catch up. Um, but Claude already has something kind of like that. They've got Cowork, which I haven't really used, but it allows you to. Actually, I did use it. The presentation that I showed you guys, it was pretty janky. I created it in Google Docs or in Google Slides, and I said, "This thing looks ugly. Can you make this look better?" And it told me, "Yeah, go download it and put it in this folder, and I'll fix it." So,
mm.
Where did you put
What is
that to
co-work?
improve it? Sorry.
hmm?
Where did you put, sorry, Taylor, where did you put it to improve it? Like it didn't look good and I put it in there to improve it. Where did you put it?
Here, I'll show you kind of the before and after. So, Here's the original one I created in Google Slides. Not very nice. So then what I did was, we can go look at this right now. It has the whole history of the chat.
What is Cowork? I've never used
Work
it.
is, it's getting closer to running your computer. So
Gotcha.
you give it more access to more applications, and it can coordinate, like, I need to go download this thing and then put it into this folder and then add it to a slide. Those kinds of things. I have not used Cowork a lot, but so what it did is it told me to export to PPTX, which I did. You can do that here by going to File, Download, and Microsoft PowerPoint. And then I think, what did I do? I've downloaded it. I put it in my downloads folder. Here's the name of it. It says, oh, I only have access to your documents folder. So I think that's what I did, is I moved it into my documents folder. Oh no, I just uploaded it. I said, here's the file. And I said, good. And then it just went through and made some changes, colors. And then I could just click here to show it where it is in the folder right here.
Can you upload files when you're working with it in the terminal or
Yes.
in
Oh, in the
code?
terminal, sort of. The way it works in the terminal, so it looks like it finished here. Let me make sure I've got.
That's not creepy looking at all.
Let's see. Let me just wait and see if I may have, looks like it generated a token here. Let me go back to here. Where was I? This is what it's like. I just like, wait, where was I? I got distracted. That's the only downside of this. So it says share the URL in the token. All right, so let's do, here is the URL. And then I think this is the token. It's very ugly. Right here. Token is, let's see what it's doing here.
Trey asks, are you not concerned giving something like Cowork access to everything on your computer?
Well, as I said, I haven't used it a lot. So I don't really know. I know that they, supposedly they've added a lot more safety controls, over what it can do. So it's not like Claudebot is true YOLO. It's just like has access to everything. With Cowork, it's more limited what it can do.
Right.
And it does a lot of this, it asks you to approve things and things like
Yeah.
that.
It sounded from the interaction like it only had access to your documents folder. Do you think that would it be a case that you could make a special folder called Cowork, and then anything you wanted it to have
Sure.
access to, you could sort of only give it access to that folder, and you could
Yep.
just sort of specify, okay, you can have anything in that folder but nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that might work. It's kind of controllable, at least.
Yes.
Not all or nothing.
I mean, I don't keep up with all the AI safety research, except just kind of occasionally when I hear about something that went catastrophically wrong. But I mean, this is a huge area of concern that a lot of people are spending time on. And there's some questions of whether it's even possible. I mean, it's so weird. These AI guys, they just get up and say, yeah, we're going to destroy all your jobs, and we're creating this thing that we think might spin out of control, 50-50. Give us more money. It's just, it's like the worst PR strategy I've ever heard. Oh, and we're going to build these data centers in your neighborhood that are really loud and suck up, drive up your electricity bills.
Then people are giving them billions and billions of dollars to do it.
They are, although it started getting a little round trippy, where one side will say, we got $10 billion. We're going to invest 3 billion in this other company. And they're going to invest 1 billion in this other company, which is also going to invest 1 billion in us. It reminds me of the dot-com bubble. I suspect we're going to have a spectacular flame out of one of these companies, maybe sometime this year. Um, I think OpenAI is the most at risk. Claude seems to, Anthropic seems to have more control over their burn. They get more revenue per customer than OpenAI.
Is
Going for code is
OpenAI
probably a good strategy.
ChatGPT?
Yeah,
Yes.
ChatGPT is
Yep.
OpenAI,
Okay.
yes. Plus, there's DeepSeek out of China. I mentioned the dot-com era, but probably a better example is it was alongside the dot-com era was the broadband build out. You had all these companies that were like racing to lay fiber everywhere. They spent billions of dollars. A lot of it was debt. And then most of them collapsed and got picked up for pennies on the dollar. And the result is we all have really fast internet. But those people did not make a profit doing it. And I suspect there's going to be a lot of iteration. I honestly, what I think is going to happen is one of them is going to flame out and Apple's going to buy them for nothing. It won't be nothing. It'll be billions, but it won't be a trillion. Um, I've always thought that Amazon would buy one of them. But we'll see. I'm not like an expert on the economics of these businesses, but it'll end up being, you'll be able just to have one of these running on your local computer. You won't even have to use a cloud-based service provider. We're probably a few years away from that, but you can already do that now. There's lots of open source models you can do with if you're interested.
Hi, DJ. I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So when we are building an app on cloud, is cloud smart enough to be able to allow us to integrate more advanced features like APIs and databases?
Oh, yes.
Oh, really?
Yes. It's fantastic.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, I'll just show you one of my apps. Although this is sort of what we're talking about.
I mean, we're even including a little database in this one, right? We're
This one
building
has a
out
database. It's using
Small.
SQLite, just a very low cost, easy, lightweight database. But yeah, you can use Postgres, you can use Mongo, you can use any of them. So this is an app I built entirely with Claude. I'm still not finished. I'm still working on the mobile version, but it's basically an identity verification system, and it works like you've probably seen before. You take a picture of yourself, take a picture of your license, and that uses on the back end, it uses Google Document AI and Amazon's TextRack service, and neither of those have I ever used before. It also uses the Algorand blockchain, which I'm familiar with, but I've never written any code for. And it built all of it, and I still don't know how to use those services. I mean, I knew enough to go look at the code, ask questions about it, suggest. I mean, it would kind of go down rabbit holes sometimes, and I have to say, no, just let's start over. You're making duplicative things, or so I had to guide it. But it built all of this. One thing I was kind of proud of, that it's probably boring to most people, but there's an emerging standard called LLMs.txt, this is to allow an LLM to read my website. It's, you don't have to download the whole website. You just download the text version of it, and it has links to, where you can get more information. And again,
Did you use an LLM to generate this file?
Yes.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. So, I just used it. I said, look, I need an LLM.txt. All the documentation, it generated all of that for me. I did go and make a few changes, but it did all of that. So, yeah. And another one is this one. It's a crypto sort of research tool, where you can give it a token address, and it'll go look up and see if this is a scam or not. and it uses various heuristics. And then it also uses DeepSeek LLM to like download the white paper and look for, indicators. Again, I didn't write a single line of this code. It did it all with Claude. And
That's pretty amazing. I'm really impressed.
yeah, it's it's all stuff that I understand. It uses Python. I've never done a ton of Python, but I understand Python. It, uses web APIs. I've done a lot of that. But I was really just like, whenever it got stuck, I would say, explain it to me, or, is there a different, I mean, sometimes you can just ask it, this approach seems really complex. Is there a different way we can do this? And it'll say, you're absolutely right. And suggest different approaches. So it really is like having a coworker. It's like having like I remember with one of my companies, I had a couple of interns working with us. They were students at University of Colorado, and one of them about every 15 minutes would turn to me and ask me, hey, DJ, how do I do blah, blah, blah? And my answer was always, I'm not sure. Why don't you Google it? And, and after about 100 times, he figured out that, oh, he could just Google it himself. He doesn't have to ask me every time.
I see. And regarding, I mean, like the databases and what you just talked about, does Claude automatically find them for you, or you're telling it to like connect to this, or you're like feeding it the information and then it does the work?
Let me think about it. I mean, it will seed it for you. And it'll generate the schema and everything. And like we just had it create, this Terso database, this Brazil. So here it is. Let's see if it's hasn't been deployed yet. So this is the app we're working on, but it hasn't been deployed yet. But yeah, like I built a prototype for this project. It was just it wasn't real data. We were trying to show what it would look like, and it had to do with real estate. It was like, cards of different real estate projects you could invest in, and I said, look, I need about 100 of these spread across the country, come up with some clever names for them, and go find some pictures. And it went to Unsplash, downloaded the pictures, and came up with some names. And I said, okay, add some returns information, but don't make it so predictable. Make one of them 10 million, one of them 2 million, make the profit split different, and it did. Now it was a lot of iteration. It was like every one of these says I need to raise 2 million. Why is that? Oh yeah, you're right. Let's change it. Let's make it a little more random.
Right. But at the same time, like if you had a big research database already, if you had a big chunk of data and you wanted to like do an analysis on it, you could just say, hey, I have this data. Here it is in this file.
People
Like,
are using it to look at
let's
their
go.
DNA. So you just go and get your DNA analysis done, and you get this massive file and you put it into Claude and you're like, tell me about myself.
Yes. Yes, that's a really good point. So sometimes if it's on a public database you can access, it'll tell you, I need you to go here and find the URL and username and password. Or, if you just have it locally, you downloaded a bunch of files. What it most likes are like CSV files, text files, and then markdown files. And that's kind of its sort of favorite type of sort of local data to work with. It can work with PDFs, but it's not very good. It prefers text.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Ellen asked well, it's not quite a question, it's just a comment in the chat, but mentions a security issue that she's heard of where AI can hallucinate code libraries that don't exist, and then other people create those libraries and put malicious code in them. As someone like, I feel like, even an experienced programmer, like, there's so many libraries that exist. Like you couldn't just like skim the output from Claude and know immediately that all of those things existed. How would you go about, kind of protecting yourself from those kinds of things?
There's no real good answer to that right now. A lot of people are working on it. A pretty spectacular example, not exactly of that, but related. Did anyone hear about the Tea app? I think it was in 2024.
Oh yeah.
It was, a way for women to spill the tea on guys. Don't date this guy, he's really abusive, or don't date him, he's a narcissist. And in order to get access to the app, you had to prove you were an actual woman, right? So you had to upload your license. And well, it turned out their security was really terrible. Um, it's obvious that someone vibe coded it, didn't know what they were doing. And, a hacker poked around and figured out, oh, look, and they got all of the user data, their licenses. I mean, it was catastrophic to them. So if you're going to do anything like that, that it stores like personal data in particular, um, have someone, a professional, look at it. Now, what's happening now is we haven't really talked about it with GitHub yet, but there's something called CI/CD, which is continuous integration, continuous deployment, um, which these are scripts that run. So like when I push it to GitHub, which I haven't done yet, I'll show you how to do that in a minute. It These are scripts that'll run. And most of the time they're just sort of doing sort of technical level things like, does it compile? Does it have any secrets in it? Things like that. But and if it fails, you'll get a build error. But now there's sort of agent-based approaches that um, uh, will run a security audit, and the standard, not a standard, but what I'm seeing people say is you can set up competing agents, right? We have one that's really good at this kind of security and another one that's very good at this kind of security. And so you run it through all these different agents and it'll generate a report. But no one has really standardized it yet. I mean, I expect what'll happen, it'll be some combination of Claude, GitHub themselves, which is owned by Microsoft, Google. They'll start building packages to uh, make this less likely. But there's even without Claude, this code libraries thing. There's been some catastrophic attacks just in the last year of bad code getting injected into very commonly used libraries. So I wish I were a cybersecurity guy because it's just an infinite pool of money. There's always security problems. There will always be security problems. And, especially like the government will, and, big corporations will pay a lot of money there. So let's see here. It's taken a while to get through all this. So build passes, let me commit and deploy.
I wonder,
Also, it
DJ,
already committed to GitHub to you, so it didn't even ask me, but let's go back to GitHub so we can just go look at it. Here it is, cognitive overload. So these are the files. So interestingly, there's not a README here. I'm going to tell it to create a README here in a minute. Here's the source. And what's kind of neat is you can, if you click on one of these, it shows you the changes between them. So it's very useful for that kind of thing. Let's see if we got this thing to deploy yet. Let's see. Let's go look here.
DJ, I was going to ask if you think it might be taking longer than is it taking longer than you're used to? And I'm wondering if it's like the Opus versus Sonnet difference there.
It could be. It is taking me longer. Sometimes I wonder if I don't usually use this interface a lot. I'm usually in a terminal. And so sometimes with a terminal, you can just hit escape and it'll stop. So when it's spinning for a while, I'll just hit escape and say, what's going on? This is taking too long.
I think if you hit the little stop button in the
Yeah, I
chat
could do
box,
that.
that you could kill it as well.
Okay. Seems like it's finding stuff. So we just go back here, let me just go look and see. Okay.
So if it hadn't automatically pushed it to GitHub, would your next step then just be to put that as an instruction in those words into the Claude?
Yes, I
Yeah.
would tell it. Yeah, on the first time, you'll have to go create a GitHub account and all of that, and it's going to ask you to copy and paste some things in. But
But it'll walk you through that the same way it did
yes,
for what was it called?
yes,
Toko?
And would you just do that kind of as a routine every time you make something?
yes. I pretty much what you can do is let me just go. Let's change to uh, let me just go. I'm just going to go create. So I just created a directory called test, and I'm just going to run git init, which initializes the GitHub repository. Normally, that's what I would be doing when I'm starting a project, but Claude does a lot of that for me now. So it's which is good. Git is an incredibly powerful tool, but it's also kind of complex. There's some arcane commands, and so a lot of times I'll just ask Claude, how do I create a branch? How do I update the branch? How do I merge these two things? And it will do it for me.
Yeah. I like to put all of my coding projects on GitHub if I can. Mostly because otherwise I feel like I'm at risk of losing them on my local computer. Either because something goes wrong with the computer or because I just can't remember where I put the file. But the other thing that it's useful for is if you find yourself wanting to work on it on a different machine, different
Mhm.
computer, you can
Yeah.
essentially collaborate with yourself,
Hmm.
or if you want to collaborate with a different person, it allows you to kind of pull that code like from the cloud um, to work on it somewhere else,
Um,
which
yeah, so I just put a link
can be
in.
useful.
It's live. So anyone can click on it and go look at it.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Let's all
let's
go
do,
fill out the survey.
yeah, so let's do this. Let's create a README, a read'em. It's even good at getting typos.
I noticed that the one it's published has the dashboard and the admin within it. So if you were going to iterate on that, you would probably ask it to make one just
Yeah,
for people filling in the survey.
yeah, you would. If I were actually looking to build this, I would have like a user registration system, some access
Yeah.
control, so not just anyone can do it.
Yeah.
Um,
But for the
Yeah.
purpose of the demonstration, it's quite cool.
and
Yeah.
this is usually how I start. I just start iterating with like, let me just get it up on the screen. And then, okay, I need to limit users. Um, I want them to be able to log in with Google or, LinkedIn.
Or
Um,
only be able to fill out the survey once or something like that.
Yeah.
right. And so let's just test it out real quick. Let's enter some data.
Can I just ask Marcus, when you're working on projects, when you go for a walk, do you talk rather than write, or can you write and walk at the same time?
Hey, yeah, I'm mostly talking to the phone. Um, so chat OpenAI ChatGPT has very good like transcription service built in. So you can
Mhm.
just speak into it and say, I want to build these features, fix this, fix that, change this, change that. And yeah, if it's on GitHub, like it pulls from there, rewrites the code, we'll push it back up and like redeploy it, and you can just iterate on things on the go.
And does it talk back to you?
No, I don't want it to talk back to me. I just read what it says.
Yeah.
But me speaking and it writing is my preferred like interface.
I have to try that out. I have not. I've heard people talk about that, but I haven't tried that myself. It does. I mean, I can imagine like on a long car drive, like coming up with an idea and just telling it, create a repository that does this, and between here and 2 hours from now, I've got a working prototype.
Right. By the time Claude is done dilly-dallying or whatever,
Yeah. So that's
it'll be it'll be
that is
ready.
something I've noticed. Claude is slower now. Um, I think it's a combination of overload. I think they're probably limiting usage. Because it's about 6 months ago, I started using it, and it was just shocking how fast it was. Like I couldn't even keep up. It was just like, generate all these files, and just it was amazing. Um, so that's why they keep building data centers, I guess, is to keep up with demand. So, Mary, if you want to, do you want to use this thing I created or we created?
I just did.
No,
It's amazing.
for your own project. Would you like me? I can give you access to it. So if you want to keep building.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd have to set up a GitHub account. That makes me feel very modern.
Yes. So I just put my email
Fabulous.
address in the chat.
Hmm.
Go create a GitHub account and send me an email, and I'll add you as a collaborator to that. And then,
Fabulous.
if you want to reach out to me, we could schedule time, and I can show you how to pull it down and start working on it.
Amazing. Amazing, amazing.
And so I think we're done, right? Any
Yeah, I'd love to hear if anyone else has any questions that have come up like for them through this process, or any kind of reactions and kind of responses to watching this process. Does it seem like easier than you thought it would be, or harder than you thought it would be? I'm curious.
I can
Yeah,
share.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go
Yes.
for it, Stephanie. I can share.
okay. Excuse me, Mo. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was like hard, but I was just curious, say if I wanted to do something like change the font or add in my own font library, is that possible?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. How would I do that?
Let's just do it. I don't like the font or color scheme. Can you recommend something else? So clean and professional, warm and friendly, bold and modern, minimal and calm. Which one?
We go warm and friendly.
Warm and friendly. Okay. So it's going to go in there. And I could have just said, I don't like any of these. Come up with some more ideas. Or, I'd like something in pink. And it would come back with some ideas on that.
Or I have a font library file saved, and I'm going to just
Yes.
add it to the folder, add it to cognitive overload folder, and then it could just pull from that directly.
Yeah, that reminds me. One thing, I don't think you can do this well, let's see. Can you do this? No. Something you can do in the terminal that you can't do here. So let's go back to and let me just start Claude. What you can do is you can take a screenshot and put it in the folder and tell it, go look at this. I don't like that. So like for example, the day when I was working on my resume, it kept the spacing was weird in one section. So I would use a tool. Let's go to the local version here. I would, oh shoot, looks like it's. Well, let's just do this. So I could take a screenshot. This is a little tool I use for screenshots. And then I would go over here. So this is what I was showing you earlier. This is Z. And I can just drag it into Z. Oh, come on. I was bragging about how fast that is, and now it's crapping out. Okay, so there's the file right here. And then I can, within Claude, I can reference that file. So if I just start typing at, I can reference any of the files. So in this case, I know it starts with SCR, limit there, and I could say something like, look, let me just do it this way. Look at, I don't like the spacing in the menu. And it can actually go, it'll go look at the file and make suggestions. So that's a really there are some more advanced, I haven't really used them. There's tools where it can load a browser and you can co-browse with it. The stuff I'm doing is mostly just for fun. So, you know, I don't need that extra juice of being that much faster, but I imagine I will at some point. And so I'll start using tools like that. Let's see how we're doing here. Let's do a build check.
But what you just did there in the terminal, if I'm correct, you said that is not possible to do in the Cloud app.
Yes, I was wrong. So if you just type the at symbol and you can just start typing, you know, the name, and it'll narrow it down. So yeah, I thought that wasn't available. They only just released the web interface like 3 weeks ago. So I haven't used it very much, but it turns out you can do that. You can also do slash commands. Here's a neat one. It'll tell you how much this is all costing. It's going to queue this up while it's still working with other things, but eventually it'll run. So there's some basic ones that come with it. But some of these are some custom commands that I've added, like security review is a command I've added. Actually, why don't we just do that? Let's run security review. It's going to come back and say, this is incredibly insecure. Unsecure, anyone can access it, and it'll have recommendations.
So DJ, if you had $20 a month to spend, which one would you choose?
I mean, I'm most used to Claude, so you kind of get into a groove. There's still a lot of people who like Cursor. But I mean, I'm on the Cursor subreddit, and there's just a never-ending sea of complaints about they changed the pricing again. You know, I don't get it. Why am I running out of tokens? And I never look at them, but it seems like a lot of people get hot about it. I've not used Codex, but
Who runs Codex?
that's OpenAI.
That's OpenAI.
Yeah. No one, as far as I know, uses Grok. Supposedly Grok for coding, but no.
For code.
All right, so let's go see what it looks like. Oh, look at that. It's a little warmer. Yeah. Yeah. So
Cool.
you can also, for example, like let's say you have a website that you like, oh, I really love the color scheme on this website. You can just take a screenshot of it, drop it in, and say, I want this color scheme. Or you can say, here's a URL. I want it to look like this. And it will go find it.
Okay.
I
didn't know it was that advanced. That's really awesome.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah. The default is, this is just kind of an opinion I have. The default styles are very masculine. You know, they're very sort of blue and dark and black. And I think there needs to be more women using it so it gets better ideas. Because yeah, you can have like I have a friend who's a designer. Let's see if she's got her website up.
I'm a UX designer, so that's why I'm curious about these things.
Good. So this website actually doesn't look as good as it used to. It used to be just because she added all this stuff. I helped her build the app, but she's just a wonderful designer, and you can see she's using better colors. It used to have this really cool yellow backdrop with like this scrolling images she had created. So and it's refreshing because so many sites are like this. I'm so sick of these kinds of interfaces. Um, so let's
Yeah.
see. So it already pushed it, refreshed it. Great. Here's the colors it used. Um,
Subtle shadows. That's very kind of it.
uh,
Stephanie, I would say like in terms of like, can it do that? Probably like it's worth giving it a shot, right? Like
yeah,
if it
yeah,
can't, it can't. And then you can say, okay, well, I found the boundary of like what it can do, but you may as well give it, you know,
Right,
just
give it a go.
give it a go. See how far you can push this thing.
Yeah, no, I'm
yeah. This
really
gets to
excited to try this.
it gets to this point I had in kind of the last slide. I want to reiterate it. Jasmine Sun, I think she really gets at it. You don't know what you don't know, and code can be intimidating. But she has another essay where she talks about software shaped holes. So the analogy she made, she has a friend who does parkour, and if you go for a walk with him, he's constantly noticing, oh, I could do a backflip off that thing and then roll and then jump over that car. And he just sees the world like a guy who does parkour, right? And that's kind of how I am with software. You know, because I've been doing it so long, so I'll look and say, it would be really cool if I had an app that did this, and it had this kind of interface, and the database would be like this, and it would collect and aggregate, and uh, just you start to notice patterns, and so she has a really nice essay where she talks about noticing software shaped holes, and it talks about how I noticed I was doing this one task over and over again. I was downloading this one thing and then uploading it somewhere else. But in between, I had to go in and edit the data and massage it. And anything you find yourself repeating, like that's where you go to Claude. Say, I keep having to do this task over and over. Can you help me make it faster? And it's really good for that. But I'm most excited, like I said at the beginning, is the sort of people who aren't coders, who aren't they're just doing uh, like the history guy. He's a historian, right? He's never built an app. He's never thought about building an app, but he just started playing around and came up with this very clever idea that I never would have dreamed of. And so I just think there's just this huge unexplored space, and we're going to start seeing lots of really cool stuff.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the possibilities are endless just based on what you've shown us today.
Yeah, it's exciting. I just mentioned in the chat
Yes.
an answering Trey. If you guys like, decide to dig in and like try these tools out and you end up building something cool, definitely like share it on that
Of course.
II Discord because it's such a great way. I mean, even thinking back to what DJ was saying at the top about someone popping in and saying, I'd love to like help you work on this. It's like such a great place to find collaborators and also just like cheerleaders. Like people want to, be excited for you and see what it is that you've been building.
Yeah, I mean, a clever enough idea, you never know who's going to show up to want to help and make suggestions. Sometimes you could do without the suggestions, but nonetheless, that's I wrote an essay a while back about there's a sort of anti-AI contingent, politically oriented. So there's on one level there's and I agree, these people are going up there and bragging about how they're going to destroy jobs. I mean, that's not exciting. I don't want to hear about that. Um, and that has kind of morphed into AI art. It all sucks, anti-AI. And I compared it to the synthesizer. I was a musician. That's what I originally said was music. And the synthesizer was invented, I think, in like 1962, and it was really janky and lame. Um, and no one really did anything interesting with it, in my opinion, until about 1980 when Kraftwerk's Computer World came out, and it's I'm pretty sure it's the first 100% electronic album. And it's got this song called Numbers that all it is just counting, to 8 in different languages, German, Spanish, and it like captures like this is what a computer does. It just counts, right? It's just very good with numbers. And so I feel like once, some artists kind of get past their sort of technophobia or, hating Sam Altman, they're going to start building some really cool stuff. Did you want to say something, Mary, before we go?
I just want to do a quick question about Discord, because I've been hearing a lot of bad things about Discord
Oh, yeah.
and about all the privacy breaches and needing your photograph for some ID thing or whatever. And if people around me are changing from Discord to other things. So have you got any views on that? I know it's a bit off topic, but
So what they've said is they're going to start age verifying, something I actually support. I won't go into all the reasons now, but and that's actually that Cardless ID app I created. That's what that's for. But they're only doing it. Yeah, Trey's pointing out it's only for adult. I mean, there's a lot of Discords that I guess are geared toward scatological topics, and they don't want some teenager just stumbling into them. So for those, they're going to require it. For everyone else, like Internet Elect, you can optionally turn it on. If they find that a lot of stuff that's age inappropriate is getting posted, they will bring down the hammer and tell you to do that. But as of right now, I don't think that's happening that much. But as with all things on the internet, anything you put on the internet, just be aware it can be stolen, it can be hacked, and just be cautious about that. I mean, one thing, I use a password manager called Dashlane. I recommend everyone. There's a bunch of them out there. I just happen to use Dashlane. I never remember any of my passwords. They're all auto-generated. They're all like 12 random characters. Get in the habit of doing that. Because Dashlane, what it also does is it monitors like breaches. Like, oh, this website you used got hacked. All the passwords got stolen. You should change your password. Things like that.
thank you. That was really helpful. Thank you so much.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I appreciate everyone coming. And I'll probably do another one of these again in a month or so if you want to come back for another round.
Awesome. Thanks, DJ. Thanks, everybody. I hope you had fun, and I really, really look forward to seeing what you all decide to build.
Please share in Discord. I would love to see what you come up with, because there's so many more creative people than software engineers, and we can bridge that gap. That's just fantastic.
Amazing.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.